Hi everyone. I just wanted to do a real quick demo just as either a refresher for those of you that have seen this on class or in class or on Zoom, or for those of you that may have missed the instruction to stay on track. We are going to be working into another shape replication exercise. This is sort of our last of the shape replication exercises, and what can be the most sort of challenging, but I feel actually the most beneficial later on as we start to move into some drawings from either other photographs or from objects that are in front of you in real life. All right, so for this shape replication exercise, basically what you're going to do is you're going to be given a similar sort of sequence of lines and shapes as we have in the past, except for you'll notice to the right that there is no box, there is no space other than it just being sort of open. Right, what you are going to do as part of this exercise is to create what we call a bounding box or an envelope. And what that means is to essentially cut down and reduce down the amount of space which surrounds an object or an image so that it makes it easier to be able to replicate. Right, so to start this out, what you're going to do is utilize some of the tools and the skills that we have in the past. And now we're going to, again, sort of establish our own box in order to draw in. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to figure out what is the height of the object that we're going to be working onto. All right, and because we're working right next to our image, what we can do is go in and find the highest point that occurs in this collection of lines and shapes. And all I'm simply going to do is drag that line across in order to begin to establish the uppermost point in my composition or my group. And then I'm going to do that same thing with the lowest point. Okay, so this is going to give me the height of my composition. Okay, that's the collection of objects or images. Right, now I can do this super precise. I could use a ruler for this if I wanted to. I'm just working on practicing a little bit of my freehand. Again, we are working on accuracy, so you figure out what's the best way for you to do that. All right, now since we've established our high and our low, now we also need to establish our right and our left. So essentially the width of the drawing that we're doing. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over into my example. I'm going to figure out what is my furthest most point to the left, and then what is my furthest most point to the right. Okay, so that occurs on this point here. So I'm going to drop those guidelines onto my example. Right, so what I've done here is I've essentially created, in this case, a rectangular form to envelope or bind in the object. Now what I can do, since I've established that left and right point, is I can take that measurement over into my working space in order to give me that same bounding box. So I can use my popsicle stick. Again, that's sort of my measuring tool that I've been going with. I sort of like the idea of almost getting rid of the rounded part, so I give myself a little guideline there. I'm going to come over and grab the width of my box, and then I'm going to bring that measurement over, and I'm going to use one of my existing guidelines to mark in the measurement, and then from there I'm going to work in the vertical aspects of my bounding box. Okay, so I've created that same box. I'm just going to get rid of a couple lines here just to make it a little easier to see. So now I have that same box from my left example now into my right workspace. Okay, so I've created that box, that area, that space that I need to work into. I've isolated my lines and my shapes. So from here, then I start to just work into the same techniques that I've used before, where I'm going to go through and establish those sort of points, almost like those destination points as we worked with before with your line dot exercises and start to kind of break this drawing down into its parts. Right, so I'm just going to work through a series of measurements. Again, I like to use my popsicle stick for this. You can certainly use your pencil to do this as well. If I use my pencil point, and then I can kind of take my fingers and pinch the area and the space that I'm using. And then I can bring that same measurement over just like I did with my popsicle stick. Again, totally up to you, whatever you feel most comfortable with. All of this is to help you build your confidence. So use the tools that you have in order to do so. All right, so I'm making some points. I'm starting to kind of gather information about angles as well here. So I'm going to come over and grab that angle one more time. In order to start to establish some of these lines and angles. I'm going to go in, connect these two destination points, start working on getting that line nice and straight, and maybe going back and erasing anything that's not necessary. Right, and I'm going to progressively work my way through the drawing. Okay, either going in, working at sort of isolating angles, bringing those over into my composition. Just going to kind of sketch that in as a guideline for right now. I do want to get my measurement of this line here. So I'm going to lay that in. And I'm also checking my angle once again to make sure that that's correct. And then again, start to create that connection between all those destination points. And I would continue working from there, establishing this point here, so maybe measuring down or measuring in, understanding that this goes at a little bit of an angle, so I do want to double check it, triple check it, until I get everything drawn out. Once I get to the point where all of those lines are established and drawn into my composition, then what I can do is to start to work at removing out some of those lines that I no longer need. So I'm really just working through a series of measurements to kind of double and triple check myself. Right, I added that little guideline in there so it makes it a little easier to check the measurement and the distance that it's coming in from that edge. Okay, I noticed that my guesstimation was a tiny bit off, so I'm going to make that adjustment there as I start to go in then and connect my destination points. Take that last little measurement. And as you do these, guys, and you start to get all those measurements on your popsicle stick, please know that you can use your eraser that I gave you to go back in and kind of erase those off. Makes it a little easier to sort of keep your marks in line. Right, I'm going to add my last line here to finish off that drawing. Okay, and then from here, what you can do, and I don't suggest totally erasing them out, but you can go back in then and sort of lighten up your guidelines that you drew in, okay, over on the finished drawing as well. So that way you can sort of see how this example then just kind of exists within somewhat of a blank space in order to recreate or to replicate those original lines.